Greetings, Dr. Cathie here, your social research scientist and redemptive change agent, covering the world of creditworthiness and its impact on individuals, families, and society with a passion to make a difference in this and future generations. This video addresses the series on creditworthiness and population groups. Population groups refer to the group or groups to which a person belongs based on one or more common factors such as age, gender, race, ethnicity, religion, and geographic location. As a reminder, the term creditworthiness is, technically speaking, defined as how worthy or trustworthy one is to receive new credit. This assessment is based on how likely a person will default on or fail to pay debt obligations. Now, as mentioned in previous videos in this series on population groups, there are three characteristics of people groups that can significantly impact behaviors and attitudes toward and decisions about money. These people group characteristics are culture, socio-cultural context, and demographics. Today, we're looking at how creditworthiness relates to population groups within the overarching area of demographic identities and people of color. People of color refers to African Americans, American Indians, and Alaskan Natives, Asian Americans, Latinos, and Hispanics, and Native Hawaiians or other Pacific Islanders. This video addresses issues specifically related to African American and Native Americans. As a social research scientist, my focus in this context is to examine whether lending practices are discriminatory for these population groups in terms of public and private lending policies and opportunities for property ownership. In the short video, we're looking specifically at home ownership. The reason for this is that home ownership is considered a primary form of wealth for the majority of people of average or acceptable means. A recent 2024 research working paper published by the Federal Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or CFPB, reports that disparities in assessing at mortgage lending among minorities have long been documented. Even when credit is available, the authors say, studies have shown that minorities pay higher interest rates on loans. The report's authors, Banga, Fair, and Gregg, mentioned the disparities on home loan prices between Native Americans living on or off federally recognized reservations and whites. Their research is specifically focused on American Indian and Alaskan Native borrowers. Citing several validated sources, the authors summarize that Native communities are often underrepresented in traditional financial services and access to capital. Furthermore, authors Bang and other offer evidence of the cause of pricing gaps in loans specifically to finance home purchases between white and Native borrowers, whether living on or off a reservation. Evidently, according to these researchers, the average differences embed inequalities in the interest rates between on-reservation Native borrowers and white borrowers. Now, take a minute to process this finding. Now, it is likely that all those listening to these video series know how impactful interest rates are on loans. However, depending upon your primary population group and demographic, you may be unaware of the following finding. And this is what I found startling. When I began studying differences between population groups, I thought I would find common contributing factors such as low credit scores, which can be, a fair indicator of higher credit worthiness risk, liquidity constraints, things you can sell off very quickly for cash, such as no property or other assets that can be converted into cash quickly, and low income. Much to my surprise, these researchers reported, and I quote, the rate spread and interest rate disparities are not explained by differences in underwriting characteristics such as credit score, income, property value, and loan amount. In fact, the authors go on to state that less than 17% of the disparity between Native borrowers on reservations and white borrowers is attributed to these factors. Less than 17%. Now let's briefly examine African American and Latino populations. These people groups have historically faced racial residential segregation. However, this situation did not go unnoticed. The Fair Housing Act of 1968 outlawed racial discrimination in housing. However, and I quote, because of ongoing residential segregation through the country, these populations tend to live in neighborhoods with concentrated disadvantages. This information can be found in an article titled Systemic and Structural Racism by Paula Braverman and 4 co-authors. Now, according to these author researchers, beginning in the 1930s, bank lending guidelines from the Federal Home Owners Loan Corporation were later adopted by private banks. The guidelines explicitly used neighborhood racial guidelines and ethnic composition data to assess mortgage lending risks in addition to income data. Against this background emerged a concern practice referred to as redlining. I quote, during decades when federal loan programs greatly expanded whites' homeownership, non-white and low-income areas were disproportionately redlined, a practice whose name refers to the red shading on homeowners loan corporation maps of neighborhoods that were deemed hazardous for lending. According to current research, and again I quote, racial and ethnic differences in home ownership, home values, and credit scores in formerly redlined areas continue. Another enormous and related concern is that predatory financial services disproportionately target communities of color. And that's a quote. I've recently posted a video regarding these types of services that also target other vulnerable populations, of which there are many. These services include payday loans and check cashing services. According to Braverman et al., the 2022 article, racial and ethnic differences in home ownership, home values, and credit scores in formerly redlined areas, as I mentioned before, still persist. In terms of societal impact, according to research, Braverman emphasizes that subjecting selected population groups to redlining and higher service costs are practices that create obstacles, hindrances to home ownership, starting or expanding businesses, accumulating wealth, financing college education, and generating property tax revenues to fund schools. Worth mentioning are other impacts of creditworthiness as it relates to population groups described or discussed in this video. The dependence of public schools on local property taxes results in schools in segregated areas often being poorly resourced, making it difficult for children to escape from poverty and, as a consequence, having ill health conditions as adults, as well as many other challenges. Well, I hope you found this content informative and perhaps beneficial personally or professional. Please be sure to tap like and subscribe to help promote this ongoing series addressing the important societal concerns regarding the world of creditworthiness and its impact on individuals, communities, and societies. Thank you.